With the continuing tragedies going on in the schools across America, being a student has never been more terrifying. When the alarm rings signaling the school to go on lockdown, you can't know if you'll make it out alive. You're watching Darkness Prevails, the best place to share your creepy stories with the world, because this world is a strange one. Enjoy the following allegedly true school lockdown stories, and if you want your story in a future video, you can send it to me at darknessprevails.org/submit. I'm looking for stories about sewer encounters, firewatch experiences, and creepy bosses. Now then, someone is in the school, so we better hide in the corner and pray. Number 1. Middle School Lockdown. Submitted by Ben Griffin. I remember this like it happened yesterday. To say I was a theater nerd was putting it lightly. I was walking to my chorus class one day, and to get to the chorus room, you have to pass the front doors. So as I was walking by, I noticed a strange man. I'd say he was in his 40s. I shrugged it off, thinking it was a parent. Maybe they were here to pick up their kid. You never really know, and it wasn't any of my business. As I got into the chorus room, we did our warm-ups, which was a daily thing. We sat down and watched a documentary on the national anthem. Then we began practicing singing the national anthem for the upcoming basketball game. The door suddenly swung open, and I saw the same man enter our room. The man I'd seen moments before in the front of the school. Red flags were going off in my head immediately. I knew if he was someone's parent, the office would have called down to inform us a student was going to leave, that a parent was coming, or they would have at least given them a name tag. My chorus teacher, surprised, stood up and asked the man if he needed anything. As she stood, the man literally punched her across the face. Many of the students screamed and backed away, but my friend, who was a bigger guy compared to the rest of us, ran up to her to see if she was okay. As he approached, the strange man pulled out something metallic and sharp. "Step away, or I'll cut your head off," the man said with a maniacal tone in his voice. My friend backed away, of course. The man then looked at me, and I will never forget that grin. His eyes were as wide as possible, revealing his disgustingly rotting teeth. He began walking up the stairs, still looking at me. When he was around 6 feet from me, I stood up and panicked. I grabbed a chair and threw it right at him. He grunted as the chair hit him, but he was still standing, and he was laughing. But this distracted him long enough for the students and the teacher to get out, including me. As we were running down the hallway, I heard a noise, just as the alarm rang, signaling a school lockdown. It was the man coming towards us, and he was screaming out to us. My heart was pounding in my ears, and the sounds of dozens of students running through the hallway was surrounding me. But what I think he said was, "I'm going to get you all." Just hearing his voice and his approaching steps sent chills down my spine. My class and I managed to make it out of the front doors, but the man never ran out after us. Maybe he had decided to target a class that was still in the school on lockdown. When we went on lockdown, usually a class would just cower in the corner away from the windows with the doors locked, meaning anyone still inside was an easy target. Outside, we watched as a SWAT team came and stormed inside, and about a half hour later, they came out with the man in handcuffs. He was really beat up, and he had to be sent to the hospital. Come to find out, the man wasn't able to get to us after we left the building because of the school security. Due to miraculous timing, the moment we ran out of the front doors, one of the faculty members pressed the button that locked all the doors in the school inside and out. We were able to make it out, and he was stuck inside. But as I thought about it for a moment, if they had pressed that button sooner, it would have made us cornered, trapped against the doors, while the maniac ran at us. It was only mere seconds and chance that changed our lives forever, and our fates. As for the man, he had just gotten through a divorce. He lost his house, his savings, his kids. He got stuck with lifelong permanent alimony payments, as well as nearly a decade of child support. So the guy just snapped. Now, how did he get in though? Well, the women in the office were helping a child in the nurse's room, so he was able to get in without being noticed. Usually, faculty would see someone walking in, and you couldn't get past the office without talking to the office. He approached the chorus room because his son was in chorus, but he had the wrong period, so his son wasn't even in the class at the time. But that didn't matter to him. He was planning to take a lot of lives down anyway. And luckily, I threw that chair at him, and we made it out before the building was locked. Number 2. Clown Catastrophe. Submitted by Grayson B. This took place around the time those clowns were making headlines across the country. I lived in Kentucky, where the clown group was supposed to be, or a clown group. It all started at night when I was lying in bed, chatting with my friends on Uvu. We were talking about the creepy clown incidents, and how all this crap was probably fake. It was either set up and planned, or it was just people trying to get attention, not actually dangerous. Then another friend tuned in, and informed us that cops were just at their local Walmart, about 3 minutes away from my house. He said that there was a clown there, that he had a weapon and was firing at people. I didn't believe him. The next morning, I woke up and I saw the news. Someone actually had gone down to the local Walmart and shot the place up. As I kept watching, apparently, and this is the creepy thing, he was found wearing a clown costume. My mom told me not to worry about it, that it was all fake news, that they were probably blowing out of proportion, and it was nothing more than a kid trying to scare people in a clown costume. If he did have a weapon, it was probably a plastic and realistic looking one, but that wouldn't be as shocking to put on the news. I wasn't sure what to think about that. I went to school and met up with my friends, and while we were there, we ended up talking about what had happened, and we all had chills. The school day went on normally, until 4th period. 4th period was my favorite class, because it was with Kobe and Jack. All of us were talking about the clowns. Then our teacher caught us and told us to stop talking about it, because we could incite a panic, according to him. Even after the bell rang and we tried to go to the next class, the teacher pulled us aside and told us that we shouldn't be talking about things like that we didn't know what we were talking about. It was weird how freaked out he was just for us mentioning it. Anyway, we moved on to our next classes as usual. It was in one of these classes that I received a text from my friend Jack. It read, "Come to the bathroom. We need to talk about something." I asked my teacher if I could use the bathroom, and he approved. I met Jack there. He looked stunned. He said he got a text from one of his close friends at another middle school about 5 minutes away. He showed it to me. "Dude, we're on full lockdown," it said. "People saw clowns in the schoolyard." Just then, as we were reading this freaky text, the intercom came to life, stating that we were now on lockdown. Me and Jack looked at each other, horrified. Immediately, we sprinted to the nearest classroom. The hallways were empty, and the classroom doors were locked. We put our faces to the window and screamed and pounded on the door. Luckily, the teacher saw us as she was situating the kids in the back of the class away from the windows. We had definitely scared them, but she unlocked the door and let us in. We went to the back of the class with everyone else, and we tried to take our mind off of things. Most of us were on our phones playing games or something. Others were panicking and asking the teacher loads of questions. That's when she confirmed that the other school was in fact on lockdown as well. This was real. Psychos were invading our schools. We waited there, in silence and fear, for what felt like eternity. But soon, and suddenly, we began hearing screaming coming from outside the classroom door. Then there was another stranger sound, like a squeak from a squeaky toy. The doorknob to the classroom began to jiggle, and then it stopped, as if whoever was outside had given up. About 15 minutes later, we were escorted out of the school by cops fully armed. Waiting on us were some extremely worried and many tearful parents. I never figured out who or what was outside the door, and I can only assume it was one of those creepy, psychotic people in a clown costume. Weeks later, police found an Instagram page with pictures of my school from the date of the lockdown. This had apparently been planned by a group of people. No one had been hurt, but the fact that they wanted to get in the classroom meant that they were looking for students, and what they were going to do with them if they did find them, I have no idea. But it couldn't have been anything good. Number 3. I was almost in a school tragedy. Submitted by Hunter G. I lived in a southwestern Missouri town with the typical middle-of-nowhere feel. The town itself had a population of around 2,000, and it was just big enough to have its own school district. There were about 200 kids total, from pre-K to 12th grade, and we all shared the same campus. The school was divided into high school, junior high, and elementary wings. As for me, I was in junior high at the time. The building that housed us was old and falling apart. It looked as if someone cut a straight hallway out from the main campus and built a breezeway between them. Because of that separation, it was closer to the street than the other wings. Specifically, I was in social studies when that headache-inducing doorbell sound began. We'd all been through the intruder drills before, so we went through the routine. The students packed themselves into the corner. The teacher shut off the lights and locked the door. She hushed us as we all sat bored and annoyed on the floor. We were admittedly being kind of loud, because to us, it was just another disruptive drill. It took probably 15 minutes of continuous dinging for the idea to sink into our little 13-year-old minds. This one wasn't a drill. After that, most of us stayed silent, and even the teacher crouched down with us away from the door. I whispered to my friend as she clung to me, "I think we're going to die." To that, she started crying. I don't know why I said it. It was as if I was in a trance. Fear was my drive. 30 minutes in, we began hearing distant popping sounds, which slowly faded into nothing. The clump of us were shaking in our entirety. I recall this nasty emptiness in my stomach, just waiting, knowing it would be my time soon. The chime of the intruder alarm seemed as far away as the pops, though the speaker hung overhead. We could do nothing but wait for our turn. Finally, after what felt like forever, the voice of the principal came over the loudspeaker. It stated, "Please remain in your classrooms." And that was all. High off of existence, us kids sat on the desks laughing loudly and talking non-stop. The teacher abandoned her lesson and rested behind her desk. I imagined she was feeling the same overwhelming relief as we were. It was over, we thought. It took a little over an hour, but the school called all the parents, who then came and picked up their children. We didn't realize at the time just how close we had come to being victims. Because while we were studying state history, someone was on his way to our school to end as many lives as possible. He stopped his truck on the road just a block away from our school. He was in the process of removing his weapons when a good Samaritan stopped to see if he was having car trouble. Having been found out, the man took the life of the Good Samaritan, who ended up passing away on the scene. The popping sounds then rang out and quickly alerted the police. They were able to hold the man at a standoff until the violent exchange left the man and one officer, gone. It was over. And if that Good Samaritan hadn't stopped to offer help, instead offering his life, the man likely would have made it inside our school, would have taken many, many more lives. In the end, tragically, 3 people lost their lives that day. It's sad, but as students, we were more than thankful. There are no happy endings in that evil, cursed town, but there are lucky ones. That day, all of us kids were lucky. Number 4. Band Room Ghost, submitted by Raven R. It was October of 2016 when this happened. I was in the 6th grade, and I was in band. I was walking to my second class for the day. The class started off normally, until we heard something. It came from over the intercom. "This is a school lockdown drill," Mr. F said from the speakers. The band teacher told the class to hide in the back. The band teacher turned off the lights, as me and a friend went to the back and hid in the low brass area. Nothing happened at first, nothing really noticeable. My friend Lizzie was next to me. I suddenly felt something cold touch me. It was like ice on my skin. "Dude, stop, your hands are freezing," I said, thinking it was her. "It's not me," Lizzie said. "I'm not even touching you." I saw she had her phone out, and she was holding it with both hands. I rolled my eyes. She was probably playing a trick on me, trying to spook me in the silence of the classroom. Even though they're drills, these lockdowns really creep us out. But then I felt the hand again. This time it was more than just a touch or poke. The entire palm and fingers of the icy hand were on my skin. I wanted to scream, but I just barely managed to keep it in. Lizzie looked over at me. She told me not to touch her, and I told her I didn't do anything. Meaning both of us were feeling something touching us. As I said that, something towards the computer caught my eye. I looked over at it. As I looked, I felt fear rush over me, and I wanted to run. There was a silhouette standing next to the computer. It vaguely resembled a girl, 5'2" in height. As I looked at her, or it, I suddenly felt more freezing cold hands all over my body, dozens of them. Just as I was about to let out a scream, the intercom sounded, and Mr. F said that the drill was over. The lights came back on, and the icy cold, painful, stinging sensations went away. There was no longer a shadowy figure by the computer, and I was left there wondering what the heck just happened. And number 5, The Stranger, submitted by Ross W. It started in 2012. I went to a small middle school in an even smaller town. The best part about the school was the large playground area. There was more playground than the kids knew what to do with. That playground was surrounded by a short fence, which opened up at 2 sections. One for the bus drop-off, so the kids who rode the buses could exit and enter from there. And the other was for the gazebo trail. The gazebo trail gate could only be opened by teachers to keep kids from wandering off. Still, many of the students would climb the fence, as it wasn't that tall, whenever the teachers weren't watching. They'd go out to the gazebo and simply hanging out. Some of them even smoked out there, but the rest of us just thought they were idiots. Anyway, it began when the principal decided that the teachers needed to stay inside the school during recess for the next week or so. to help set up some equipment for the end-of-year celebration. Every year at the end of it, just before summer break, they'd set up a little makeshift carnival full of prizes and games and candy and nonsense, so the students could go out with a bang. But only if you read enough books over the year, which our homeroom teachers and the librarian kept track of. I always thought it sounded like a terrible idea to keep the teachers inside, but I guess the principal thought it was fine, as the auditorium they were setting things up in had a glass wall facing the playground, so technically they could still watch us very closely. But they weren't really watching us at all. I know that now, because they didn't see the stranger, didn't stop him. If they had seen the stranger, all of this could have been prevented. The stranger showed up just outside the gate to the gazebo one day. He was a middle-aged man with a very thin frame, and he was extremely tall. I would say 6'4". He wore this weird-looking broad-rimmed hat that looked more like a too big frisbee than a hat. His clothes, from his hat to his boots, were all solid black. If it were nighttime, you probably couldn't see the guy at all. He'd be invisible, and that'd be just creepy. The stranger walked up to the gate, leaned on it, and watched the kids. You'd think one of us would have had the idea to report the stranger to the faculty, as obviously this was all kinds of wrong. A strange man watching kids during recess, that was all kinds of red flag. But no, instead we watched him from the distance, made our jokes about the guy, how he was a weirdo and creep, and continued our games of Foursquare, basketball, and of course Yu-Gi-Oh! There was this girl in my class. Her name was Judy. I always thought Judy was an old lady's name. Anyway, Judy was a peculiar girl. I never saw her playing with anybody during recess. Never saw her talking to anyone in the halls or in the classroom. Oddly enough, she was the first and only person to approach the stranger. One day during recess, she walked right up to him. I watched her, keeping my distance as usual. She began to talk to him, and they carried on a conversation for a while, talked together, and eventually, the stranger began bringing her gifts over the next couple of days. Gifts like candy bars, ice cream, popsicles, and toys. Every time he'd show up, Judy would go to greet him. They'd talk, and he would give her a gift. It all led up to the day when I saw him inside the fence. While he was talking to Judy one day, he jumped over. He knelt down in front of her. I saw him grab Judy's hand, and they kept talking and laughing together like nothing was weird or wrong with it. I was definitely weirded out, and now I could even say I was sickened. This wasn't normal. This wasn't right at all. What was wrong with a grown man that age that he wanted to spend so much time with her? A 13-year-old girl. And what was he, 40? Several of us decided it was time to tell the teachers. They obviously didn't care to watch us, so it was up to us to report this creepiness. We began to make our way to the doors, 3 of us. Yet, when we looked behind us, the man was now walking over. He knew what we were doing, and he didn't like it. His face said it all. That stern, cold expression and eyes locked on me. It was absolutely horrifying. Seconds before we reached the doors, the alarm rang. The sound for the lockdown drill. The students on the playground stampeded inside, flooding into their classrooms. All the while, the stranger walked calmly still to the school doors. Before I knew it, I was back in our homeroom class, jam-packed, crowded into the back of the classroom with the rest of my classmates under the shelves. We waited in silence, the teacher shushing us loudly every time we even dared to whisper to one another. But how could we not? We all had so many questions. and we were all scared for our lives. At one point, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, because that was when someone jiggled the doorknob to the first door. Then I heard it at the second door. From my point of view, I couldn't see much, save for a black blur moving past the doors. He went back and forth, trying to open them repeatedly. Soon he stopped jiggling the knob and he spoke up. "I just want Judy. Come on, Judy. Come out here. Let's go play together." Chills flooded my spine when I heard him. I looked to my right, and there was Judy. But instead of shaking and being scared like the rest of us, Judy was smiling. She seemed excited. It looked like she was wondering why she had to hide from her new friend. The teacher was making this waving hand gesture towards her, signaling her not to reply. But then Judy stood up, and she began to walk over to the door. When the teacher saw this, she practically tackled Judy, and Judy started to cry. This went on for 10 minutes. 10 minutes of psychotic pandemonium. And finally, the jiggling and sounds from outside stopped. The man was gone, and seconds later the police were coming through the door. It was the craziest thing I'd ever experienced, and easily the creepiest. That man really wanted Judy. Obviously, with those gifts, he had been grooming her, conditioning her, basically brainwashing her to the point that when he was trying to get into our classroom for God knows what reason, she was chomping at the bit to go and unlock the door and possibly unleash hell onto all of us. I don't know if he had a weapon of any kind. I don't really know what he would have done if he had gotten into the classroom, but it's that not knowing that's so scary. I wonder what he was planning to do to Judy. Something tells me that his and Judy's story went on after this event, because the police never arrested the man, because he wasn't at the school when they showed up. Students, if you're ever at recess and you see a strange person walking up to you, alert the teacher as soon as possible, before he takes one of the children, before one of your best friends is never seen again. If I had a kid, I would be terrified for them, knowing there are people out there who want to hurt them, not for any particular reason, besides just being able to, or just wanting to. But these psychos and maniacs out there who target children, you're just cowards. Children are our future, so it's up to us to protect them from the dangers that lie just beyond the fence. Good night. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And don't forget, you can send me your creepy stories at darknessprevails.org/submit. I'm particularly looking for stories from sewers, Firewatch, and tales of creepy bosses. If you want to support my channel beyond subscribing and leaving a like, you can download my app Spooked on the Google Play Store for free. Think about donating $1 a month on my Patreon at patreon.com/darknessprevails, and you'll get your name in the credits at the end of these videos. Or if you got a little bit of extra cash, go to morbidmonsters.com and buy some creepy cool merchandise. As usual, here are my 5 favorite early comments from the previous full video about 5 creepy backroad stories. Small Kitty 234 says, "Hippity hoppity, get off my property." I wish I owned property. Even if it was a haunted backroad, I'd be happy. That'd be way better than renting. Glitter Dragon says, "I love how often you upload because there's times I'm overthinking things and I get sad. I'm right there with you. I've put out about 7 hours of content in the past week, so I hope that can help you." Sweetheart Sonia says, "But is the old front road safer at least? What about the side road? The diagonal road? I prefer the yellow brick road. Ain't nothing better than spitting on witches." Brandon Goetic says, "Hello, I just wanted to say I watch your videos every night at my job, and I love them. Can I work there with you? I'd love a job where I can listen to scary stories, a job that pays money. And King Raven says, that's why they say never take the back road. Nice work, Darkness. The thumbnail looked awesome as well. That's all thanks to YaManTV. You can follow him on Twitter. He has a lot of amazing designs. He designed this thumbnail as well. So thanks, King Raven, and thanks YaManTV. Well, we've come to the end of the video, and I thank all of you who are still listening for stopping by and getting some new nightmares. Until next time, here are the credits to the patrons who continue to donate. Be safe out there, and stay creepy.